Imagine walking into a gym just to watch your cousin's first karate class, and suddenly, the black belt instructor points at you, mocking, and challenges you to fight in front of everyone. Most people would laugh it off, but what this young woman did next left the entire gym silent. "Are you sure you even know how to throw a punch?" That's what the karate instructor said, grinning widely, his voice echoing through the gym. His words were meant as a joke, but they carried weight. Everyone in the room suddenly grew quiet, and all eyes turned toward the young black woman standing at the front. Some of the students chuckled nervously, unsure if they should laugh or stay silent. Others simply watched, sensing that something unusual was about to unfold. The air felt heavy, as if the entire gym was holding its breath. At the center of it all stood Amara. She wasn't dressed like the others in their crisp, white GIs and neatly tied belts. Instead, she wore a simple red fitted t-shirt and black training pants. Her presence was quiet but commanding, even though she hadn't said a word. She hadn't come here to fight. In fact, she hadn't even come for herself. She was only there to support her younger cousin on his very first day of karate lessons. He had been nervous, almost refusing to walk through the doors, until Amara encouraged him with her steady confidence. She wanted to be his cheerleader, nothing more. But the instructor had other plans. A tall man with years of experience and a black belt tied proudly around his waist, he had a reputation for being tough and a little arrogant. He noticed Amara standing in the back, not in uniform, and decided to turn her into the subject of his joke. "Come on," he said, pointing at her, the smirk never leaving his face. "Step on the mat. Let's see what you've got." His tone was mocking, as if daring her to embarrass herself in front of the entire class. Everyone watched closely. Some students laughed outright, thinking it would be a quick spectacle. Others looked uncomfortable, wondering why their teacher was picking on someone who clearly wasn't here to participate. But Amara didn't laugh. She didn't argue. She didn't even hesitate. With calm precision, she stepped forward. Her face showed no fear, no fluster, only a steady seriousness that silenced even the chuckles from the back row. Her eyes were sharp, unblinking, focused on the instructor. Her posture was upright, her body still, but her presence carried a quiet strength that even the most trained students could feel. The instructor raised his brows, slightly surprised at her boldness, but still amused. He expected hesitation, maybe even refusal. What he got instead was a woman walking straight toward the center of the mat, as if she belonged there all along. Gasps whispered through the crowd. Her cousin, sitting cross-legged on the floor, looked up at her in awe. He had no idea what she was about to do, but he knew one thing. His cousin never backed down when challenged. And in that single moment, the atmosphere of the gym shifted. What began as a joke now carried the weight of something much more serious. Everyone could feel it. The tension was sharp, almost electric. And that's when the gym learned a very important lesson. Never underestimate someone just because you don't know their story. As Amara stepped onto the mat, the instructor smirked, clearly enjoying the attention. To him, this was entertainment, a way to make his students laugh and show off his own superiority. He thought this would be over in seconds. Just a harmless joke, a playful push, maybe a light tap to make her stumble. But Amara didn't stumble. Instead, she bowed. A slow, deliberate bow, the kind every true martial artist gives before a fight. Her movements were smooth and disciplined, too precise to be accidental. The room went even quieter. The sound of sneakers squeaking on the polished gym floor stopped. Even little kids sitting cross-legged at the back leaned forward, eyes wide. Her cousin's jaw dropped. He had never seen her like this before. To him, Amara was just his cool, older cousin, the one who helped him with homework, told funny stories, and promised to cheer him on during his first karate class. He had no idea she had another side, a side that spoke a different language, the language of discipline, confidence, and silent power. The instructor tilted his head, his smirk faltering just a little. "Oh, you've trained before?" he asked, his voice a mix of curiosity and mild surprise. Amara didn't respond. She didn't need to. Instead, she adjusted her stance, her feet spreading lightly on the mat, her knees bent, her weight balanced perfectly. Her eyes locked on him, unwavering, sharp as a blade. The whispers began. Wait, does she actually know karate? She looks serious. What if she embarrasses him? The students' voices carried an undercurrent of excitement. They had signed up for a regular class, but what they were witnessing now felt like the beginning of a story they would retell for years. The instructor waved it all off, trying to regain control of the atmosphere. Relax, this is just for fun, he said, raising his hands lazily in a loose stance. He still didn't take her seriously. To him, she was just a visitor, someone with no uniform, no belt, no right to stand on the mat as his equal. But Amara wasn't here for fun. She wasn't here to play games, or to prove herself to the students, or even to humiliate the instructor. Her calm expression made that clear. She wasn't fueled by anger or pride. Instead, she stood with a different purpose, one the instructor couldn't yet see. She was here to teach a lesson, not with speeches, not with arguments, not with laughter or clever comebacks. Her lesson would be delivered the way all true martial artists deliver theirs, through action. The air in the room grew heavier, charged with anticipation. The students leaned forward. Her cousin clenched his fists in nervous excitement. Even the instructor, though still wearing his confident smile, shifted his weight slightly, as if preparing for the unexpected. And then, in that stillness, in that silence, the balance of power in the gym shifted without a single punch being thrown. Amara was no longer just a visitor. She was the storm waiting to break. And the instructor, though he didn't know it yet, was about to be humbled in front of everyone. The instructor lunged forward playfully, tossing a lazy jab with a grin plastered across his face. To the crowd, it looked like he was simply putting on a show, a harmless move to keep the atmosphere light. But before anyone could even blink, Amara shifted. Her body flowed like water, sidestepping his jab with effortless grace. In the same motion, she caught his wrist and twisted it into a firm lock. The instructor's eyes widened. His knees buckled as he stumbled forward, his balance stolen in an instant. Gasps rippled through the room like a wave. The crowd of students, who only seconds ago thought this was a joke, now sat wide-eyed, their laughter frozen in their throats. But Amara didn't humiliate him. She didn't twist harder, didn't throw him to the floor. Instead, she released his wrist gently, stepping back with a calm, respectful expression. Her message was clear. That was just a warning. The instructor's smirk evaporated. His face turned red, partly from the sting of being caught so easily, partly from the realization that he had underestimated her. Now, there was no more laughter. All right then, he muttered, his voice low, his pride bruised. Let's do this seriously. He tightened his stance, his posture sharper now. Gone was the lazy playfulness. This time, he moved like a black belt. He launched forward with speed, a flurry of quick punches and kicks, the kind that had earned him respect in competitions. The students leaned forward, expecting Amara to crumble under the sheer force of his attacks. But she didn't. Her movements were smoother, sharper, faster. She slipped past his punches, ducked beneath his kicks, her body flowing in perfect rhythm. Every block, every dodge, every counter was clean, precise, and controlled. She wasn't scrambling to keep up. She was dictating the pace. The more he attacked, the more flustered he became. His strikes grew sloppy as frustration set in, but Amara remained unshaken. To her, this wasn't a brawl. This was discipline. This was focus. Then in one swift move, she swept her leg across his, catching him off balance. The black belt hit the mat with a thud, his breath knocked from his chest. The entire gym erupted. Some students gasped loudly, their hands over their mouths. Others cheered, unable to contain their excitement. A few simply stood frozen, in disbelief at what they had just witnessed. And yet, even as the instructor lay on the floor, Amara didn't gloat. She didn't raise her arms in victory or smile in triumph. Instead, she extended her hand and helped him up, her face calm and respectful, the way a true martial artist shows honor to their opponent. The message was undeniable. This wasn't about humiliation. This was about discipline, respect, and quiet strength. For the first time that day, nobody laughed. Nobody whispered. The room was filled with something far heavier than jokes. It was filled with respect. Amara helped the instructor to his feet, steadying him with a firm but gentle grip. She bowed once more, her movements deliberate and full of respect. She never gloated, never smirked, never tried to rub her victory in his face. There was no arrogance in her eyes, only humility, the kind that separates a true martial artist from someone merely chasing titles. For a long moment, the instructor stood frozen, adjusting his black belt as if trying to remind himself of who he was. His pride had clearly taken a hit, but something deeper stirred inside him. Beneath the embarrassment, there was also recognition. He knew what had just happened, and he knew the truth could not be denied. Taking a deep breath, he faced her fully. His voice carried less bravado this time, and more sincerity. You're skilled. What style do you practice?" The gym fell silent again, waiting for her answer. Amara's eyes shifted to the circle of wide-eyed students, their faces filled with awe. Then she spoke, her tone calm and quiet. "Capoeira, and some jiu-jitsu. I've trained for years." A collective murmur swept through the students. Suddenly, everything made sense. The way she moved with rhythm and fluidity, almost like she was dancing around his strikes, came from capoeira. The smooth wrist lock, the controlled sweep, the effortless pin. Those are the signature techniques of jiu-jitsu. Whispers filled the room. No wonder she was so fast. She's incredible. She made it look easy. The instructor, still catching his breath, swallowed his pride. He knew this moment wasn't about him anymore. He bowed deeply toward Amara, his voice firm but humble. "You've taught us something valuable today. Skill is not about belts. It's not about who wears the uniform or who gives the orders. It's about discipline, respect, and experience." The words struck the students like lightning. Many of them had believed that the belt around their waist defined their worth. But in that instant, they saw the truth standing right in front of them. A woman in simple training clothes, no belt, no rank, and yet more disciplined than anyone in the room. The silence broke into thunderous applause. Students clapped, cheered, and even shouted her name. Some of the younger kids looked at her with wide, shining eyes, as if they had just seen a real-life superhero. Her cousin, sitting cross-legged near the back, was practically glowing with pride. His chest puffed up, his nervousness from earlier completely gone. To him, Amara wasn't just his cousin anymore. She was his role model, his inspiration. He whispered softly to himself, "That's my cousin." For Amara, the applause wasn't what mattered. What mattered was the look in her cousin's eyes, the confidence she had sparked in him, and the respect she had restored in that gym. She hadn't stepped onto the mat to fight. She had stepped on to teach, and the lesson would be remembered for years. That day, the gym learned something unforgettable, a lesson far more valuable than any drill, any kata, or any belt promotion could ever teach. The students realized that true strength doesn't always come wrapped in a crisp white uniform or marked by a colored belt tied tightly around the waist. It doesn't always shout or demand attention, and it certainly doesn't brag. True strength often arrives quietly, hidden in plain sight, underestimated by those too quick to judge. It waits patiently until the right moment comes, and when it does, it speaks louder than any words ever could. For Amara, stepping onto that mat had never been about humiliating the instructor. She had no desire to show off or prove herself superior. Her calm presence, her respectful bow, and her controlled movements showed that clearly. This wasn't about pride or dominance. It was about something far greater, about respect. Respect for the art, respect for the discipline, and respect for the truth that arrogance has no place in a dojo. By controlling her strength and never once mocking her opponent, Amara reminded everyone that skill is not meant to belittle others. It is meant to protect, to inspire, and to teach. As the students filed out of the dojo that evening, their faces told the story. The laughter that had filled the room earlier had vanished, replaced instead with admiration, curiosity, and newfound respect. The whispers among them weren't about the instructor's embarrassment anymore. They were about Amara's composure, her humility, and her undeniable mastery. Even the instructor himself, though humbled, walked away with his head held higher than before. He had been reminded of something he had long forgotten, that every martial artist, no matter their rank, must always carry humility alongside their skill. He had been the teacher at the start of class, but by the end, he too had become a student. Before she left, he approached Amara with sincerity in his eyes and offered her something few expected, an invitation. "Come back," he told her. "Teach a guest session for the class." It wasn't just a gesture of respect. It was an acknowledgement that the lesson she carried was one his students needed to learn. Amara's cousin, meanwhile, could hardly stop smiling. He had arrived at the dojo that day nervous, shy, and unsure if he even belonged there. But after watching his cousin silence an entire gym with grace and confidence, something changed inside him. He stood taller. He walked with pride, and for the first time, he looked forward to his own martial arts journey. For him, Amara wasn't just family anymore. She was proof that quiet strength could command the loudest respect. She was his inspiration. And so, what began as a cruel joke meant to embarrass Amara ended up transforming into something entirely different. It became a story that every student in that dojo would carry with them. A story of humility, respect, and the power of composure. Because sometimes, the most powerful response to mockery is not anger. It isn't pride. It isn't even revenge. It is quiet strength. And Amara had proven that in front of everyone, turning a moment of disrespect into a memory of inspiration that would never be forgotten. Studio Microphone. If you're enjoying this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us bring you more amazing stories like this one.